Hi, my name is Athena Oden, and I'm the owner of Ready Bodies Learning Minds. We have recently advertised a new product called the Sensorimotor Needs Inventory. It's been designed for students with visual impairments and/or autism, multiple impairments, deaf, hard of hearing, multiple disabilities, and/or merely behavior issues. So this inventory is going to assist you in planning interventions. But the question is, why is Sensorimotor Needs Inventory? My desire to create this inventory came from the concerns about the behaviors of students. I think first we have to develop a holistic understanding of what might be called behaviors, and we need to consider the whole child before we attempt to extinguish one particular behavior. When we can identify the presence of sensorimotor issues, it's then crucial to consider their potential impact on behavior. And when we understand that, it then becomes possible to develop an intervention plan tailored to that student's needs. Therefore, careful assessment of sensorimotor issues are essential to develop effective intervention plans that address the whole spectrum of a student's needs. This inventory is not seeking a diagnosis, but rather striving to understand how the children might exhibit sensorimotor delays or needs. For instance, motor instability and sensory insecurity can lead to anxiety, right? So as students become more sensory and motor competent, their anxiety decreases and their behaviors improve. That means then intervention involves encouraging sensory motor development and reducing anxiety to improve overall development and competence. But before attempting and scoring the Sensorimotor Needs Inventory, it is imperative that you attend the course RBLM, Meeting the Sensory Motor Needs for Students with VI and/or ASD MIDHH MD. That is a long name for a course, but it's at rblmteachable.com. This course was initially developed for children with visual impairments, but the application is much wider than that. On the landing page, you will see the instructions. Please read those. And an entrance for the web inventory, one for a PDF of the inventory, and an entrance for a list of the activities. And please, don't just go to the list of the activities. You need to know you are picking the right activities for your student. So for those of you who are familiar with the standard Ready Bodies Learning Minds Motor Lab program, not all of the activities in the book will be listed here. Some of those activities do not apply to these students, but those activities that do apply may be self-explanatory, while others might require some modification. If modifications are necessary for activities, they are suggested and printed in red at the top of each activity page when you go to that link. Additionally, there's an appendix for special situations that are not covered in the RBLM book, and these appendix items are labeled as A1, A2, A3, and so on, and you will see those. Now, there are 7 major headings on the checklist: vestibular, proprioceptive, tactile, auditory, olfactory, oral processing, and key movement control issues. Each of these major headings has multiple subheadings listed as 1, 2, 3, etc. Those subheadings were going to be what you score. They are the definitions of responses, such as number 1 in vestibular is desires or seeks out linear movement activities. Number 2 under vestibular is desires or seeks out rotational movement. Number 3 under vestibular is appears unbalanced, and there are several more. Then, under each of these subheadings I've just mentioned, there are several descriptive options available, such as under vestibular number 1, which is desires or seeks out linear movement activities, you will have descriptive options that have check boxes next to them, such as rocking and swinging, bouncing up and down, jumping on a trampoline, or nods head up and down. These little descriptive options have no scoring value, but they are simply a description of the student's behavior. You must check one or more of these options if you observe the student demonstrating that action. This is a way for you to keep tabs on what type of behavior you're seeing in the student. And then you need to decide, how often does this happen? You'll be able to choose from 5 categories of occurrence. Always, about 90% of the time, often 60% of the time, some 40% of the time, never 10% of the time, or occasionally you will see the option refuses, and that is important too. You will notice that always at 90% or often at 60% are in the red zone or they are colored red, and there are links to activities below those check marks. That's important. If you choose some at 40% or never at 10% in a question, those are activities you might not need to pursue, so there's nothing listed below those check marks. However, this rule does not apply to 3 specific questions, and you will see this as you go through the test. You don't have to remember it here. Vestibular number 1, number 2, and proprioceptive number 10, when there is a response of never or refuses, it is flagged as a concern because there are certain things children shouldn't refuse to do. In those cases, interventions recommended, activities are recommended, and are listed below those check marks. So after you finish this inventory, a summary page will be scored. Each major category, like vestibular, is scored by indicating the number of questions that are assessed at each level, and then it's easy to identify the proportion of a major category scored in red. So for example, if you're scoring vestibular, there are 8 questions. If more than half of those, more than 4 of those have been marked in red, then this might be an area of intervention that you need to give high priority to. So from this information about all of the major categories, you can create an intervention plan. As well, an email will be sent to the tester's email address when you complete the inventory with all of this information. The links for the appropriate activities will also be on the email. This is the way that you can begin your intervention with activities immediately, and we want you to be able to do that so that you can address your students' needs right away. We hope this is an effective tool for helping you plan your intervention with your student.